to introduce our hostess this morning, Melanie Gass, who is with our chamber. She's on our board of directors. She doesn't have her tiara and her pink bow on today, but we all know her as the Princess of Microsoft. Melanie.
Hi, good morning, everyone. So I'm so excited to be your host this morning because we have a brand new space, 230,000 square feet. And if I can ask you to give a hand to the Manhattan Chamber for coordinating everything, that would be great. Thank you. So part of the reason why I'm so excited for you to be here is because it's online. You know, the goal of this morning is to talk about companies that were born, so to speak, in the web space, in the cloud. They didn't necessarily start with a retail space. And Microsoft, of course, has lots of different products that can help you be born as business owners and entrepreneurs. And one of the fascinating things, and let me just grab this for a second because it fell. Does anyone get Entrepreneur Magazine by chance? A few of us? Okay. I know a good portion of it talks about franchise in the back, but I was on the plane heading back from corporate in Seattle last week, and I finally had a chance to look through all of the months of different magazines. And what was interesting is that in April, they talked about the top mistakes, most expensive mistakes. And number 4 that's listed here is not understanding technology, which I found very fascinating, that not understanding technology can actually be one of the top reasons why your business doesn't succeed. So the point that I'm making is that when you listen this morning, consider it, at least in my mind, I hope you consider it a gift. Because there are going to be little bits and grains of information that hopefully you can take away, whether it's technology related or not, that can help you save money to your bottom line. And so as you listen this morning, listen with intent. Please be here, please be present. Of course, we've got all the fun gadgets and stuff and materials and my business card and a discount card in the very back there. That's all Microsoft related, and feel free to take those as you leave. But listen with intent, because you're going to hear some of the most amazing ways that these women have started in this online space, how they've been able to create a successful company from that online space, and hopefully give you some tips that you can take away and be able to produce in your real world, even though you may not be one of those really big companies they've been able to create yet. Sound good? All right, so with that, I do have some speakers just to mention, and you'll see them come up: Alexis Maybank, Haley Barna, Jenny Hyman, did I spell that right, or pronounce it right? Okay, and Daniela Yakubowski. And just to talk about who our moderator is, it's Jill Kaplan, which is one of our fellow board members. I'm on the board as well as Jill. And Jill is the vice president and publisher of Crain's New York business, and she joined the magazine back in September of 2006. Before that, though, she was actually the general manager of Wall Street Journal's Weekend Edition. And in addition to that role, she was the Personal Journal and Journal Report GM as well. She was the chief liaison between news operation and business side for 5 years. She led the journal's consumer diversification strategy and was a key member of the senior management team who conceptualized and launched that weekend edition and that redesign of the paper. She oversaw the agency relations program and created that, as well as ran the business to consumer sales division for 4 years. And before all of that, in joining the Wall Street Journal and overhauling the weekend edition, she worked for The Economist shortly after they began distribution of the U.S. as the Eastern Advertising Director. She actually started her career with Times Mirror magazine, and she serves on the boards of the Partnership for New York City, our Manhattan Chamber of Commerce, the Lincoln Center Corporate Fund, the Women's Leadership Council for the Lincoln Center, the Business Council of New York State and American Skin Association, and, if that's not enough, she's the member of the Young Presidents Organization and the Women's Forum, and she graduated from Clark University with a Bachelor of Science in Economics in 1988. She has a husband, she has 2 children, and she lives on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. So Jill, can I call you up here to join us?
I am very honored to be here with such an extraordinary group of amazing female entrepreneurs that are tearing it up here in New York City. We at Crain's really enjoy being able to follow extraordinary careers, and it is, I haven't actually met everybody in person, so it's really quite a neat opportunity for me. I just want to do an extremely brief introduction. We have a full bio for everybody. Right here we have Alexis Maven, who is the founder and strategic advisor to Gilt. And in 2007, Alexis was on the founding team who conceived and built Gilt. She's also one of our 40s and is a disciple, of Kevin Ryan, who's also a phenomenal tech entrepreneur. And then we also have Jenny Hyman, who has been the CEO of Rent the Runway since the company's inception in November of 2009. And she's responsible for all areas of the business, including technology, fashion, sales, marketing, operations. Oh my goodness, I'm getting tired even reading all of this, my lord. Customer service, team management, while also serving as the company spokesperson, and also, and this is one of the fascinating things, also a graduate of HBS. And then certainly, last but not least, is Daniela Yakovitz, and who's the co-founder of Baublebar, which is a one-stop shop retailer for affordable fashion jewelry, which is adorning you and gorgeous, I have to say. And Daniela conceived Baublebar with her co-founder, Amy John, during a project at, once again, HBS. And I'm really looking forward to visiting with everybody and being able to learn a little bit more. This is Marketing Week, and we are just delighted to be able to celebrate it. And one of the things that I asked Alexis the other day is I said, do you think of yourself as a digital tech company or a fashion company? Can you share what you shared with me?
Well, we certainly view ourselves as a technology company. In fact, sometimes I say we're a database marketer and very fashionable threads. So that is certainly core to who we are. Technology impacts every part of how we do business, from how we communicate to customers, how we ship out a box to a purchaser, and there is not a single part of our business that is not impacted by technology. So that's how we view ourselves.
Same question? Yeah, I mean, we're not going to do the same question for everyone, but I am curious, just for this kickoff question, how you see yourself.
We actually see ourselves as a logistics company. What we've really done over the last 4 years is create the ability to rent physical inventory. And to do that, it's actually all about building custom technology and building custom operational processes that enable you to take, a fancy dress or a fancy handbag or earrings, and now anything else that we wanted in the world, and to kind of utilize it as frequently as possible, turn it around. We run the largest dry cleaner in the United States right now. We run a seamstress operation, a leather repair operation, a jewelry repair operation, like all these ridiculous things that I never thought we would do. And I think that technology and the logistics actually enables us to expand quickly and deliver the customer experiences that Rent the Runway, I think, is known for, and that's helped us grow.
And Daniela?
Yeah, I think we actually consider ourselves a sourcing and operations company. So one of the things that we do that's unique from other people in the space is we've really compressed the time to market from conception to production to actually putting the product on the site. So we really consider ourselves tech and fashion enabled. Obviously, we couldn't do what we do without the help of technology, because a big piece of our business is really analyzing real-time data and analytics to figure out what's trending in market, and then we design against those trends. So we really use sort of a blend of traditional merchandising and sort of, I guess, tech-enabled real-time merchandising in order to design and produce the product that sits on our site.
And Danielle, I'm going to stay with you if I could just for a second. In the spirit again of staying with Marketing Week, I'm curious, what is your philosophy towards marketing, or how would you define your approach to marketing?
Yeah, I mean, we try to take as much of an organic approach as possible. So I think as all of the ladies up here know, paid marketing and digital marketing is obviously very, very helpful, but I don't really need the mic. Can everybody hear me? It kind of went out. I'm a naturally loud person. I mean, our view is that paid marketing is really, it should be an accelerant on an already sort of burning fire. And I think as much as you can leverage sort of organic marketing techniques, that's really helpful. So I mentioned the fact that a lot of what we do is, really looking at real-time analytics and data in order to merchandise the site. And that really comes back to, giving women what they want when they want it and really putting the right product in front of them. Because especially now online, I think there's so much clutter out there. There's so much clutter in your inbox. There's so much clutter out on the World Wide Web. And being able to, show her a really impactful image of what it is that she happens to be looking for. If you happen to know that someone was looking for a particular piece that was sold out, being able to show her 12 other options in real time is incredibly impactful.
So I'm just curious, you were talking about looking at analytics. Do you have a moment that you remember just in the course of your career where you were looking at something, you said, oh my Lord, what's going on here? And just kind of really hit you, and what was that?
Do you mean in terms of product or in terms of data that we saw? Yeah, we see it all the time. And I think that it's, one of the big pieces of our business is we found that fashion jewelry is a very unique category in that it tends not to be hit driven, it tends to be trend driven. So versus, handbags, you typically see in season there's a handbag that everybody has to have. And I think with fashion jewelry it can be very different. People really want to have a trend. So for example, right now, ear cuffs, I don't know if everyone's seen them, they kind of sit on the lobe of your ear, are really, really having a moment. We've seen a huge range of really big, aggressive ones that take up your whole ear, and then really little, cute, tiny ones. So we found that, really merchandising against the full trend is something that's incredibly impactful for our category. But for us, the data that we see can be everything from looking at the way that people are interacting with product on our site to looking at broader trends. So for example, we very carefully manage, Google SEO metrics. So for us, we all saw ear cuffs coming down the runway 2 years ago, and we had that question of, will this make it to mainstream? Will this really be for the Baublebar girl? And we didn't know. And I think as soon as we saw it crack, the top 20 in terms of Google SEO traffic for jewelry categories, we said, okay, there's actually enough of a mass audience that we should be thinking about testing this trend.
If I can just have you pass around the mic between the three of you, that would be great, because there are people in the back that can't believe it. They can't hear you right now.
Oh.
So
I can be loud.
So Jennifer, I'm curious, who or what inspires your marketing? How do you get inspired by the messaging that you're putting out to the community?
Well, one of the main reasons I started Rent the Runway is I wanted to democratize the category of luxury. And I felt that we had globally educated a population of people to aspire to a life that 99.9% of us can't afford. And if you think about the world over the last 10, 15 years, I call it kind of the Kim Kardashianization of the world, where everyone, it doesn't matter who you are, you don't have to care about pop culture, entertainment, it's constantly bombarded in your face via Twitter, via celebrity culture, via TV, via pop culture, brands, this lifestyle you should have, what you should be wearing, what you should be driving, where you should be vacationing, in a way that's totally different than 15, 20 years ago. And we find that even amongst our youngest customers, so women who are 12, 13 years old, they know what Givenchy is, and they know who Oscar de la Renta is, and it's really, it actually, on one hand, it's great that social media and pop culture has created awareness of brands and has basically done the work for us in many respects. But all of these brands are completely unattainable, and we're seeing declining rates of female self-confidence in the United States over the last few decades. And one of the things that has been really important to me and to Rent the Runway has been establishing a brand where we're trying to communicate that what is aspirational should be female happiness and all women just feeling self-confident. So one of the things we did 2 years ago is we turned all of our customer photos on the site into the way that women shop the site. So there are now around 500,000 customer photo reviews on Rent the Runway, where women are talking about the experience they had renting the runway, they're talking about the fit of the dress, they're telling us their weight, their chest size, what their friend's wedding was like when they wore the outfit, and they're really celebrating their life. And all of those photos are these women who are happy and they're, you know, at some of their favorite moments in their life, and those are our models. So doing things that are just a little bit unconventional in terms of what a traditional e-commerce company would do, I think lends itself to what the brand is and how we market. And in 2013, you know, close to 95% of our customers came in through unpaid channels, so very similar to Daniela. We don't really spend a lot on marketing. What we spend is on investing in our brand, investing in product, that will become part of our brand marketing. So the entire idea of this Our Runway, which are the photo reviews, came out of our technology and our product teams as opposed to our marketing team.
And Alexis, social media, you know, it's such a big category, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. How do you guys approach social media? Do you have a team that's dedicated to it? What's your personal philosophy? Is there a comfort zone? How do you share us, you know, how, because when I was a kid growing up in upstate New York, I mean, the sample cell concept was like, if I was lucky once a year, my mom and I were going to come to New York and maybe I was going to be able to find some guy on the street who's going to hand me a flyer and then we're going to run there. But you've changed all that. I mean, you've made it accessible to millions and millions of people, not only here in the States, but around the world. So I'm curious, tell us about that messaging and how you're touching folks and how you're focused.
Sure. Well, in our minds, social media, in my mind, social media has two very important uses. One, it's become one of the more important branding tools that you can have as a company online. In an age when it's increasingly difficult to remain in contact with your customer base. We're an online business, clearly, so developing that personal touch and adding a face to an online business is quite challenging, but social media is a great way to do it. The second is customer support. So let me go through that first one quickly. In my mind, social media is a great way to go to the conversation. It's a great way to figure out those pockets of people online who are talking about you or comparable ideas to the one that you've started yourself. And find a way to keep that conversation going. So in our case, it could be talking to our base about a sale that we have, seasonal trends. There are many topics that people could be discussing online amongst friend groups. And we make sure to engage in that conversation. We do it through a number of different ways, whether it's hosting contests, reaching out to them directly with a special event that we have on our site, even creating sales and events that and bits of content that only live across social channels like Twitter and Facebook. So we view that as going to the conversation, and we can measure real time the impact of having it, let's say, a Lady Gaga ticket sale or giveaway, and seeing that reverberate across the web. So it's a pretty immediate measurement to how effectively you're connecting with your audience. The second, and I think this is something that's not always as focused on as much, is how it's a really important customer support tool today. So on that first topic, yes, we have a team that is constantly there, engaging with the conversation online. And then the second, customer support, we have a team within our customer support division that's just constantly answering questions, whether it's addressed to us directly or not, to a Gilt handle or not. And it could be, you know, here's something I love that I just purchased. We go out and we say thank you. Here's a problem that I had with a recent shipment. We make sure that we're real-time monitoring all these basically inquiries and responding to them as fast as possible. And it does a tremendous amount to build that personal connection with your audience, to make them feel really good and heard on a personal level. So I would just think about those two things when it comes to social media in your business. And then obviously I think, you know, the importance of customer acquisition, Facebook and others is a very important form of new customer acquisition for us as well.
Can you stay with that for 1 second? And just, if there was maybe one specific tactic or initiative, I mean, we have a bunch of entrepreneurs in the room as well, that you could share that you found was incredibly helpful or successful in either attracting new customers or a significant program that you put in place that had a very high retention rate?
Well, in terms of attracting new customers, we do it a lot across Facebook and the social sphere to do kind of lookalikes. So you can see who your audience is, and then through Facebook and their acquisition programs, say we want customers who look substantially like this, and it's usually along demographic and sometimes interest-based lines. So that's one very practical tip, using Facebook for that reason, to identify customers that are already that you already have, that are successful within your business, trying to find others like those customers. And then in terms of engagement, some of the things that we do, we host photo contests, we you do charity drives for every person that follows us, that likes us. You know, maybe we donate a certain amount to charity. So there's a lot of fun contests and sharing and other things that really engage and encourage people to interact with your brand.
And Jennifer, I'm curious, we talked about all of these initiatives. The thing that strikes me is that a lot of these are driven by your team, if you will. And again, having entrepreneurs in the room and people from larger companies, what is your philosophy, or how do you focus on, in a competitive marketplace such as New York, attracting and retaining top-level employees?
One of the things that we've done that I think has been the most helpful thing in terms of our culture and retention is we kind of disrupted the way that we do business. So we got to a point where we found that there were 100, 150 people at the company, and it ended up that entrepreneurial spirit that we had when we were 25 or 30 people sitting in a room was different when we were 150 people. So I decided to do something that I thought was radical within Rent the Runway, and I said, you know what, we're no longer going to function in this very corporate sort of way where we're all part of divisions, and those divisions have an executive team member, and those executive team members report to me. So we started 4 different startups within Rent the Runway, and at the time, and we took a mid-level manager and we made a mid-level manager basically CEO of this mini startup. And that mini startup would have engineers and data scientists and marketers and merchants, a cross-functional team. And they were given a business goal, but that team had to create their own product roadmap for the year. So they had to come up with all of the ideas on their own, brainstorm. The ideas were not being set forth from me or other executive team members and forced on them. What I was saying is, okay, you just have to hit this goal, and you could take whatever route to hit it. So what that did is it attracted a employee who was super entrepreneurial, who wanted to act like a founder. It brought out the best in everyone at the company. You had team bonding and relationships formed cross-functionally in ways that they just had never formed before. And about a year after we implemented this strategy, we won Best Places to Work in New York, which was really, I think, the proudest moment of my entire career, because there's no way we would have been able to win that a few years ago because the culture was just not in that place. Whereas now I think the culture is just really driven by the team. And while I think I'm a nice part of the culture and I'm helping to, lead the team in creating a really warm, hardworking environment where everyone can have a big idea and go after it, I think that in order to really have a sustainable culture, because now we have over 300 people, Gilt has thousands, right? I mean, Alexis probably has some better advice on how to get from being smaller to actually sizable. But now that we have over 300 people, I just want everyone to truly believe that they can be an entrepreneur, they can have a dream at the company and actually go after it. Because otherwise, why would you be working at a startup? We're not paying you as much as Microsoft. We definitely don't have a lot of the perks that you would get at, you know, a Facebook or a Microsoft. Our building is like run by slum landlords. I mean, there's a lot of issues you have to deal with. So therefore, you have to love the people that you work with, and you have to love having the alarm go off every day and being excited about going into work.
And I'm curious, when you said you split off these different companies, was one of them, I didn't realize you're running the largest dry cleaning company in the country. I mean, that's a great little nugget. But is that one of the businesses, for example, that when somebody went to run, and how old were these middle managers? I mean, were they 26, 32? I'm just curious.
No, I mean, we still have divisions of the company. So we still have like a logistics organization and an engineering organization, and we have a CTO, and we have a head of operations. But we have members of those teams who sit on these kind of startups within a startup. So logistics, like, we have to dry clean the inventory and get it back on rack and send it out again. So that's not really what these startups are meant for. They're meant for really innovative, disruptive, new products that will kind of take the business in a different direction. I would say that the GM's range in who they are and their age, actually we now have 5 of these, what we call pillars in the company. And one is run by an engineer, one's run by a product person, one's run by a marketer, one's run by someone from our logistics organization. So like they're very cross-functional leaders. And I would say that they were directors within the company. So they weren't yet VPs, but they had managed small teams before this. So they went from managing, let's say, 4 to 5 people to now they're managing 20 people. And it's a big step up for them, and they really are high potential individuals in the company.
Daniela, what's your day like?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's probably no typical day. Tend to wake up pretty early. As soon as I wake up, I'm already on email, checking email for whatever came in from the night before. And then I think it can be a huge range, right? It sort of depends on what I have on tap for the day, whether it's meetings all around the city, if I happen to be on the road and traveling, working with the different teams in the office. It varies pretty significantly every day, and I'd say that every day I probably walk into work. Both Amy, my co-founder, and I were really big on sitting together the night before and running through our to-do lists of what we're each tackling. And I'd say if I walk in with a to-do list of 25 things, I think inevitably I get through 2 because the to-do list gets thrown out the window at 9 a.m. because it gets completely redone by 9 a.m. Every day. So I don't know why we keep doing the to-do list, but they you know, I think it's helpful to walk through kind of what our priorities are and what we're running through. But I think it's just the job by nature is incredibly unpredictable, and that's part of the fun of it. I think that's part of what keeps it motivational and exciting and rewarding.
And so if you were, staying with Daniela, if you were teaching a class today, a room of entrepreneurs, what's the one piece of advice you would give them? Make sure you do this, or make sure you don't do that.
Yeah, I think the one piece of advice I would give is just make sure that you know what you don't know. So make sure that you're always hiring people who are smarter than you. Make sure that you're always seeking advice from people who have a lot of functional expertise in areas where you lack functional expertise, which really should be pretty much every piece of the business. But I think being really mindful about what you don't know, looking to your customers for answers a lot of the time, and not necessarily assuming that you have the answers and sort of forcing it on them, is something that we really use to drive a lot of the business forward, because essentially, you know, Amy and I always say, like, we should never be the smartest, most experienced people in the room. We should always be learning from everybody that we're bringing into the team and learning from our customers in terms of what it is that they're really looking for in the space.
And Jennifer?
In terms of what?
If you were to give one piece of advice to people who want to start a company, make sure you do this or make sure you don't do that, what would that be?
I think you have to make sure you're having fun every single day. I am obsessed with my co-founder. I've made some really, really close friends from running Rent the Runway. I genuinely am in love with my team. Like when someone tells me that they're leaving Rent the Runway, maybe because they're going to business school or they've been with me for 4 years and they just want to try something new, like I'll like feel like they're breaking up with me. Like that's how much I like love them. I'll keep in touch with all of them. It's bizarre. So I think that it's identifying, like, why did you start the company in the first place? I didn't start the company because I wanted to make a lot of money. I didn't start the company because I wanted to be an entrepreneur, actually. I was at Harvard Business School, like 80% of the class is a member of the entrepreneurship club. I wasn't in the entrepreneurship club. I just had the idea for the company. I've always been a creative person, and I had the idea, and I thought it would be fun. And I started working on it, and it was fun. And the real reason I wanted to start the business is because I wanted to create a culture. And I wanted to create the kind of environment that I wanted to work in myself. So for me, finding those moments of levity and of fun and of laughter and unexpectedness every single day, I think is what's really important and what keeps me going, because it's absolutely exhausting. Anyone who tells you that the first year of entrepreneurship is the easiest is on crack. I think that my life today is 100 million times harder than it was 5 years ago, because there's 300 people at the company who I care about and who I want to be having an amazing experience. And it's much more difficult when there's 300 people than when there's 30 people. So, finding that who you are authentically and being able to just bring that out at work. So, I went from feeling a few years ago that I had to lead in the way that I had seen before me. So all of my bosses, until at the Runway, had been men, and they had been significantly older than me. They had been very tough and authoritative in the way they led, and I thought that that's what a boss does. And a few years ago, I was like, this is ridiculous. Like, I want to dance to Beyonce in the middle of the day. I want to hug someone in a meeting. I'm going to start crying. I'm going to jump up and down. And I started doing that. And I thought that initially all my engineers and all the men who worked at the company would leave me. But they all actually, the retention, when I started acting like myself, the whole company had the freedom to act like themselves. And the whole culture of the company transformed. And it's just a lot of fun every single day. People are having a great time. And I think that to me is so important, because it's really hard work, it's exhausting, it takes up a lot of your time, it takes up your emotional energy. I mean, Danielle was saying the first thing she does in the morning is she looks at her email for work. I mean, if you have a normal job where you're not running your own startup, maybe you wouldn't do that. Maybe you would get a coffee or go take a run. I mean, but I totally understand. I'm looking at my email as well, the first thing. So you have to love the people and love the company and have fun.
I tell my team all the time that if you're having fun, you're doing good work. And not every day is a perfect day, but I think you have the ability to just do extraordinary things and to really, pave new grounds and test. And I have a lot of isms, but one of my isms is I encourage our team, some of whom are here today, to fail forward. I think it's really important to test and try and to take risks and to make mistakes. And I think when you make a mistake, you learn from that. And not everything is a home run, and that's okay. And getting to first and second and third, those all are cumulatively a great way of being able to advance. And so on that, I'm curious, Alexis, what was the best mistake that you have made thus far at Gilt?
Well, that would take a lot longer than the next 15 minutes that we have available to us. But it's entirely true that you learn a lot more from your mistakes. Well, as much from your mistakes. And I think one of the biggest killers of innovation in any size business, small, medium, large, is when fear of failure creeps into your culture. And you have to do everything humanly possible to beat that up. And granted, when you look across your team, when you look across a culture building, you want those people to have more hits at the end of the day than they have failures. I mean, just for the success of the business and everything else. But the more you can do to further that willingness to test, that willingness to fail, that willingness to own up why it didn't work, and celebrating what you've learned and how you're going to apply that going forward, the better off you'll be in any situation. We've made mistakes not learning enough about a certain area of our customer base. Launching a business, putting forward an idea and concept and executing that end up not working, we're going through quite a bit of capital over the course of a year pursuing it. There are smaller mistakes. We made hiring mistakes. We went through a period of hypergrowth where we would have quarters where new employees coming into the business outnumber those that we already had at the company. And when you're going at that pace, when you're learning, when you're at the front of a new tide of innovation or at the forefront of a new industry, you're going to make lots of mistakes. And the more you can precondition your group of employees to know that that's coming, that you're going to have to take blind leaps of faith, and land maybe half of them, land more than that or land less than that. But what's incredibly important as you go through that process is being flexible to learn as you go, to recognize the mistakes you're making and own up to them so that those around you also will. But again, importantly saying this is what we learned and how we're going to do it next time. We do that in large ways, but we also do it in small ways. We allow innovation to kind of creep up from all areas of the company by having anything from hackathons to new business ideas that can be run all the way up to the board. So it's a combination of failing forward, but allowing all parts of the company to raise their hand and say, this is what I want to do, this is what I want to test, and I'll be the first to say what's working and what's not.
I just want to
Please.
add one thing to this. The most important mistake I feel like I have made, and it took me a while to trust myself, is related to hiring. If someone is weird during an interview process, it's as simple as that. If someone is weird, don't hire them. If you get a gut feeling that this is a little strange, you don't know why it's a little strange, but like your gut is telling you to stay away, stay far away. Because if they're that strange in an interview process, they're going to be terrible when they're actually working for you. That's the dating phase. They're trying to flirt with you. If they're weird, get away from them and trust yourself. So I feel like maybe when you start a company, you realize, okay, well, I was great at hiring certain types of people because that was what my background was, but other types of people, maybe I didn't know engineering as well, or I didn't know whatever the topic was. So you give those people more like gray and flexibility. It's like, well, maybe I just don't understand these engineering types. It's like, no, a person is a person. If they're weird, they're weird. Don't hire them. So literally, it's very simple, but that has changed my life at the company and changed our whole team. So my most important advice.
And that might have been one of your, on the other side is trusting your gut for someone who might have not been the conventional fit for a job was maybe the best mistake, would you say, on some level?
Yeah, I think that all of the best people at Rent the Runway are people who, from the instant that anyone on the team met them, they just had an energy and a warmth and a humility, and there was something about them that we just gravitated towards. And it didn't really matter what their experience was. Now, of course, as the team has gotten better, we've had to hire a ton of specialists. So, like, if you don't know SEO and we're hiring you into an SEO role, like, that's no longer going to work. Whereas a few years ago, we would have trained you on how to do that. But trusting your gut on the intangibles. Like, it's not about, I don't even look at someone's resume anymore when they come in and interview with me. I expect that by the time they've gotten to me, we've checked out the fact that they actually have skills and that they are able to, do their work and add and read and other things. But by the time they get to me, I just want to understand, are you a good person? Are you someone who's going to contribute to the culture? Are you going to have ideas? Are you going to bring positive energy? And are you not going to be a total weirdo? Because some of those people have worked out at the Runway, and I'm sure at every startup, and they really infect the culture. And they end up doing things that take up a huge amount of your time and your emotional sanity.
So we're going to go to questions very quickly, but I'm just going to ask one quick thing, Nance, actually in your honor. How about this? As Nancy and Laura and team at the Manhattan Chamber of Commerce are advocates for helping grow businesses and create a strong business environment, as we do as well at Crain. Very quickly, if you had one wish for Mayor de Blasio for doing business in New York, what would that be? And I'm not going to call on anyone in particular.
I'd love to continue all the great work that has kicked off in the prior administration around New York Economic Development Corps, the workspaces, the incubator spaces, the publicizing of good space in the city, which is always hard to find when you're getting up and running as a company, affordable space, and the promotion of technology at the graduate and undergraduate university levels. So thanks for that, and I hope it continues to only accelerate.
Great. Anybody else?
Yeah, I would add to that, continuing to make it really easy to find and recruit really incredible talent. So including just continuing to really focus on training junior folks, training people coming out of college, making it really easy to find really strong interns to bring them into the company early and be able to train them and hopefully retain them and keep and build talent in New York.
Right. Okay. And now we have Nancy. Do you want to start with a question?
Obviously, you're all women. Obviously, you start your own companies. One of the things that we hear from a lot of entrepreneurs is access to capital. Where do I get my money? We know there's traditional routes, we know there's non-traditional, but I'm curious in all three of your cases, what did you rely on to start your company?
I actually think for all three of us, we relied on venture capital money to start our companies. We've raised at Run the Runway $55 million of venture capital, and I think that we have some great partners who have supported us from the beginning and have really been wonderful advocates of the business. I think it's more difficult for sure for women to raise venture capital than men, and I also think that there's no easy answer to how to change that, because in fact there's less women and less diversity right now in venture capital firms than there was 10 or 15 years ago. So it's not necessarily something that's just changing over time or getting better over time. You know, I do think that there are a lot of fantastic female-founded, female-led companies that are getting funded, and that's wonderful. But it will take a lot of, in my opinion, it'll take a lot of those companies actually just getting very successful and IPOing and selling for hundreds of millions or billions of dollars to prove that investing in women is a really smart thing and is not something that you should do just because you believe in kind of equality and, you know, advocating for all. So I think that I'm just, as opposed to being part of the conversation in terms of, I'm probably one of the biggest feminists there is in my private life, but publicly, I'm just like keeping my head down, trying to build as big and as important of a company as I can. And then at the point when we actually have a real business and we've proven that we can be successful and be highly profitable, like, then we can figure out what to do about it. But for now, I don't want to like scream and shout until there's many companies that have just proven via their actions as opposed to their words.
And I'll add to that too, there are a lot more sources of capital now than there were 7 years ago when we started Gilt. Here in New York, again, through the Economic Development Corps, I think there's a seed fund still that is in partnership with First Mark Capital. They're the golden seeds, the springboards that invest in women, run businesses, and even more, Female Founders Fund. There's tremendous amounts of sources of capital that weren't there before. Even the ability to get a loan has opened up a bit more. So I encourage people to look at what are all the different possibilities, who are maybe even seed investors that are out there. We did get seed initially from Kevin Ryan, and he did help before we were able to even raise venture capital. But it's changed a lot, and hopefully it continues to change even more.
Another question? Bruce?
Good morning, and thank you for your presentations. One question with two parts. Can you talk to us about your design process for merchandise and the process for your decision?
Sure, I'll take a stab at that. In terms of the design process for our merchandise, as I mentioned before, a lot of it is a blend of using sort of traditional merchandising. So we have a fashion team who puts out monthly and quarterly reports in terms of big trends that we want to be talking about, everything from jewelry trends to apparel trends that we want to be teaching our shopper how to accessorize, to color palettes, and then also looking at real-time data and analytics in terms of what's currently trending in market to make sure that we're designing against a blend of both of those things. One thing that's unique about our business, again, is that we have a compressed time to market, so it takes us from initial design to actually putting the product on the site it's about a 5 to 6 week time frame. So for us, we take a lot of that data. We then have a production group that produces basically sketches or CADs for a huge slew of different samples. We then sample those at our factory, we get samples back, and then from there we actually merchandise the entire site based on those samples and then put the successful ones into production. So that's our design process in terms of the actual merchandise that sits on the site. And then in terms of our process for decision making, I think it varies on decision and it varies by group. So I know Jen obviously spoke a lot about culture and about making people at the company feel as though they are, having that sort of entrepreneurial voice within the company. I think that's something that's very important for us as well. So we try to keep as flat with an organization as possible. So we can do everything from huge group brainstorms to cross-functional meetings, but essentially we want to make sure that when we are making large decisions, we are accounting for the opinions of people across multiple areas from the company and across multiple sort of levels. So we want to make sure that, no matter what sort of decision we're making, we're not only taking into account the kind of senior level managers, we're really taking into account the full stack of folks at Baublebar.
Alrighty, so I am noticing it is 9:30 and we promised that we're going to be respectful of everyone's time. I want to thank an amazing group of innovative, transformational women who are doing remarkable things, thankfully, here in New York City. And we look forward to following your companies and your careers, and I'm sure that there is a lot more in store in the months and years to come. I want to thank the Manhattan Chamber of Commerce and Nancy and Microsoft so much for helping to support these types of discussions. I think they're so critically important. And I also want to thank everyone here. You all have very busy schedules, I know, so thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today, and have a great day.